For more than 170 years, Tuliphurst has rested quietly beneath the trees of Pewee Valley. Long before this town carried its name, long before the railroad traced its path through the Kentucky countryside, before generations of families filled these rooms with everyday moments and lifelong memories, Tuliphurst was simply a dream taking shape among the rolling hills beyond Louisville. The earliest portion of the home was built in the 1850s by Professor Noble Butler, a Harvard scholar, writer, grammarian, and naturalist whose textbooks educated generations of Kentucky students. In those days, Pewee Valley was just beginning to emerge. The railroad had arrived, and families from Louisville began looking beyond the city for something more peaceful, more spacious, and more green. Artists arrived, educators arrived, writers, businessmen, dreamers, and families seeking a gentler way of life began building country estates throughout the area. And on these very grounds, legend says, the town itself received its name. Gathered beneath the trees of Tuliphurst one afternoon, Professor Butler and his friends searched for a better name than Smith Station, the railroad name that had been given to the area. Then, somewhere overhead, came the soft call of an eastern wood pewee bird, and from that bird song came the name Pewee Valley. As for the home itself, it became known as Tuliphurst. Years later, after the Civil War, Woodford Hector Delaney expanded the property into the Gothic Revival estate you see today. Built in two principal stages during two different eras of the 1800s, Tuliphurst became one of the finest examples of Gothic Revival residential architecture in Pewee Valley and quite possibly in all of Oldham County. Its steep gables, delicate scrollwork, soaring windows, and intricate ash and walnut parquet floors, said to have been imported from Italy, remain today. And that is part of why Tuliphurst was eventually placed on the National Register of Historic Places, not simply because it is old, but because it tells a larger story. The story of Pewee Valley's earliest suburban development, the story of the railroad and the families who sought beauty beyond the city, the story of a Kentucky estate designed to belong to the land around it. Holiday traditions have gathered generations together here. Birthday candles have been blown out at the kitchen table. Sleepovers with childhood friends have filled upstairs bedrooms with whispered laughter. Daughters have been married beneath the trees, and sisters have sat together on the porch while the Kentucky air settled softly around them. Beyond the windows, the grounds continue to tell their own story. Towering magnolias bloom each spring. Perennial gardens return faithfully year after year. A rare deciduous magnolia unfurls enormous fragrant blossoms that last only briefly before drifting softly back to the earth again. And standing watch over it all is the great bald cypress. Planted in the 1850s, its canopy now stretches wide across the lawn, magnificent and enduring. Together, the cypress and Tuliphurst have watched time move differently here. Spring awakens the gardens in a rush of color and fragrance. Summer stretches long beside the pool beneath the trees. There is an unmistakable, undeniable energy here. A sense that life feels fuller and slower and more meaningful. Years ago, a woman named Zella Pearson saw beauty where others no longer could. She lovingly restored Tuliphurst, even painstakingly bringing the dining room floors back to life after a former occupant had once used the room as a machine shop. Because of her vision, so much of Tuliphurst's story still lives on today. Through the vestibule, you enter two adjoining formal parlors where sunlight pours across centuries-old Italian floors. Just beyond it, the screened porch opens to the side garden where the sound of the fountain and the rustling trees blur the line between indoors and out. Inside, the library waits with its fireplace, bookshelves lined with imagination and unmistakable character. And in the 1970s, another thoughtful chapter was added with the spacious first-floor primary suite, allowing modern comfort to blend beautifully into the home's historic story. Throughout Tuliphurst, there remains a sense that every room has carried more than one chapter of the story, because the home has evolved alongside the people who loved it. For nearly 4 decades, Tuliphurst has been lovingly cared for by the same family. Since 1989, these rooms and grounds have been filled with life, traditions, celebration, and love. They understood something important about this home, that it was never simply meant to be admired, it was meant to be lived in. And now, for the first time in decades, Tuliphurst is ready to welcome what comes next. Another season of magnolia blossoms, another family gathered around the table, another child discovering wonder beneath the cypress branches, another generation leaving its imprint on the story of this Kentucky estate. Homes like this are not simply recreated. Land like this is not easily found again, and the feeling that lives here cannot be duplicated. Tuliphurst has been a scholar's retreat, a gathering place, a country estate, a keeper of Kentucky memory, a witness to the birth and evolution of a remarkable town. But more than anything, it has been home. And after all this time, through generations of joy, love, growth, and everyday magic, I still believe the most beautiful Kentucky stories are the ones yet to come. Perhaps now, the next chapter of Tuliphurst is waiting for you.